Because there's always space. There's never not space. So even if there's a lot of sound, there's a spacious silence that sound always moves through. And because sound is moving through space, it doesn't alter the silence of the space. You see? That's I feel that's a key principle within this whole thing of getting relief from the head, is to know ourselves as the silent space. Because we get addicted to sound. When I say sound, I could mean any movement of energy, whether it be thoughts or emotions or whatever, or literal sound happening, through the senses. So if we use sound as the example, it's like there's a sound that happens outside. So there's a car that drives by. Now the ears pick up the sound and the head immediately identifies car. It knows that sound and it identifies that sound. Then there's a movement of, because there's hearing happening, that the head is suggesting that there's a self as a hearer. But you see, that's the false movement that we get stuck to, that I'm the hearer. And now when I'm the hearer of the sound, I go with the sound, which seems to disguise the silent space that the sound moves through. But it doesn't eliminate the silent space that the sound moves through. Silent space of consciousness is not shifted by movement. What we are is not shifted by movements of energy, whether it be sound, thoughts, the mental, the emotional, whatever, you see. It's the same as space, like my hand moves through space. It doesn't change the space. Whether my hand is in space or not, it doesn't alter the space itself. And that's key, to understand that we are that space rather than the movement. Now that doesn't eliminate movement, it doesn't eliminate sound, it doesn't eliminate thought. There's still being deeds done. It's just that I'm not the one, I'm not the movement, I'm the space in which they happen. So rather than being addicted to the movement, addicted to the sound, as the space, we let the sound move through it. Thoughts move through the space on their own. And then that way there's not a reification of this concept of there being a independent thing named J who has those thoughts or who moves with those thoughts. Well, that's where the relief comes. So then there's no need to really pressurize ourselves in order to stop the thinking. See that you're not the thinking, and then the spaciousness is always there. It's unaltered. It can't be shifted. The best part about it is you've never not been that space. You've never not been the space, and you've never truly only been the movement. The movement within the space is an aspect of experience. It's not what we are, but it's part of the experience. So I think it's credited to St. Francis Assisi, who said, you are what you're looking for. So in spiritual practice, you are what you're looking for. Now, if I'm looking for silence as sound, meaning if I'm looking for no thought, from being identified as thought is never going to find no thought, because it can't. The head can't do that. The same way sound can't find silence. But from silence, you can definitely see sound. See, so that's really kind of the movement that we're looking for. I don't know if movement's the right word, but if you see that you're not the sound, then there you are as silence. See that you are not what's filling the space, but space itself. And then how do we find what we already are? Well, you can't really, because you're already it, but see what you're not, and then there you are. See? Because if we're looking for silence as silence, we're not gonna, you can't use the Buddha to find the Buddha. And that's beautiful, that sound doesn't change silence. Appearances in space, everything is an appearance in space, doesn't alter the space. The space is just space. And then things move through space without altering space. That's really where the key of the relief lives in relationship to the mental. I feel, in my humble opinion, this is, the mental is always moving, and we get addicted to that movement. And because we're listening to the mental, it's suggesting that there's a thinker of thoughts. Now that's the false assumption that we're living under, that I am the thinker of thoughts. Rather than there be happenings, which we call thoughts, arising in space and dispelling in space, there's an arising of a thought which is suggesting that there's something behind the thought which we would call a thinker, in this case J, let's say. Yeah. And that there's an ego that's doing all of this. So if there's any doing being done, maybe we could accredit it to the ego. I mean, that's what Ramesh Balsekar would talk about. But because there's doing being done, let's say thoughts are happening, it doesn't eliminate the space that thoughts are happening in. That spaciousness is always there, and it's unaltered by the movement of thought. So if we can see that we're not the thought, you see that you're not the thought, and there you are as the space. That's it. It seems simple. I like the sound thing because sound is something that you can really sense moving through space. I feel like thoughts are a little bit more elusive, but if you think about sound like a car, the sound of a car moving, the sound of the car moves through space. There's a spaciousness there which is sort of the theater in which the sound happens within. Infinite space. So rather than listening and going with the sound, if we see that we are the spaciousness in which the sound happens, then there's relief. Because the sound is not mine. It's not me. So there's an opening of the hand. Same with thoughts. There's thoughts moving through space. See that you are not initiating those thoughts. There you are as space. And then you can be seemingly free from thoughts, which you've always been. You've never not been free from thoughts, but the seemingness of it. Yes, you can really sense, that's not my thought. I'm not the one doing the thought. There's a happening that's moving through space. There's a movement within stillness. There's a sound within silence. The stillness is infinite. The silence is infinite. Unmovable. Trauma doesn't touch it. Thoughts, emotions, free. It's always been open in that way. And then as Ramana would say, you abide as that. Abide as that. And then there's no hub of the wheel. There's no center of all the movement. You see, there's no J in the middle doing or being done to. It's much more fluid than that. It feels stuck. I know that from my own experience. Yeah. If I'm the one initiating all this movement and interacting with all of it, that's duality, yes? There's a subject and an object. So if we look within, the subject becomes an object in itself. And then there's an opening of the hand. There's a freedom within that. That silent space is always present as what we are, as what you are. It's never not been that way. Rather than staying addicted to the movement, See that you're not the movement, and then there you are.